Welcome to the lecture series Programming in C. In this module of this series, we will learn in detail about pointers and character strings. In the previous sessions, we have introduced the concept of pointers. This session, we will learn how to create a string pointer and how to initialize character pointer and how to access the characters of the string through pointers and various examples on using the string pointer and how to access each character through pointers. We have already learnt that the characters in C are represented using the enclosure with single quotes. So, we can see that the character A, B, C enclosed within single quotes, we will call that as a character or a single character. Whereas, to store a complete string in C, we have to create an array and store them in these arrays. So, the character arrays are going to help us to create strings. We need to declare one dimensional array because the characters in the string can be set at the time of array declaration or later by accessing individual indexes as given in the example. Actually, C does not have a specific data type for storing and accessing strings. So, we are going to create an array and we are going to create the character array and we are going to assume that each character in the array combined together, it is going to form a string. It is terminated by the null character represented as \0. We have already learnt in the concept of learning strings, but this session we are going to learn how we are going to handle strings using pointers, right. So, the very basic way that we can declare or create a string is to create a character array having the array size to be defined, and each character can be stored as a list of characters enclosed within single quotes. So, by doing so, we are making the compiler understand that every character in that array is going to be a single character and we are going to combine those character in an array to make it as a string. So, this can also be done in another way that we can define the character array, declare the character type array, and then individual characters can be stored in individual character array indices. So, for example, index 0 we are trying to store A, index 1 we are trying to store the character B. So, likewise we can store each individual character in the character array. So, for example, for storing the value string in the character array we need 7 characters. Even though the string has 6 characters, we need to have the last character to be the termination character or \0. So, this is actually the null character which will indicate the termination of the string, right. So, here what we are doing, here we are trying to create an array with 7 locations, and here we can see at the 4th location we are having the character C. So, in case if we want to directly access only the 4th index character, that could be done by accessing the character individually and we can replace the value of that particular index directly, right. So, when an array is created, its name represents the address of its first element. In other words, the array name points to the starting location of the array in memory. Say for instance, if we are going to have character array of 7 locations to represent the string named string. So, S T R I N G followed by the null character, right. Now, this is going to be accessed using the index of the array either from 0 to 6 or from 1 to 7, right. Now, the first location is going to be the character S. So, always when we are defining a character type pointer and if we are making the character array to be the value or to be the address pointed by the particular pointer, then always it points to the first location of the array. So, we will see an example. So, this is str is going to have 7 location and it has a value string. I am creating a character type pointer and making the address of str. Even though str is a character type array, it is enough that if we store just the name of the particular character type array as input to the pointer type variable. Now, what happens? This pointer type variable ptr will be pointing to the first location of the character array or string. So, in this code, the character pointer to string in C points to the starting address of the array str. Pointer and array are not the same, and here pointer stores the starting address of the array and it can be dereferenced to access the value stored in the address, right. I assume that the string starts from the location 1000. So, what happens when we are trying to create a pointer type variable ptr and if we are trying to store the starting address of str onto it. So, now ptr will receive the value 1000. After getting the starting location, I can move on to the next locations by incrementing the pointer type variable. So, if I say ptr plus plus, this will lead to 1001 location, because character type pointers are going to occupy 1 byte space. So, the next location will be next contiguous locations, we can get the next characters, next set of characters. So, it is enough that if we have the starting address of the character type array, we can increment the pointer to move to the next locations to access the other characters of the string. So, this is an interesting concept in C language, that using pointers we can handle the strings in an easier way. What is a character pointer then? A character pointer stores the address of a character type or address of the first character of the character array or string. So, it can store or it can point to only one character at a time. So, character pointers are very useful when you are working to manipulate the strings. Supposing if we want to modify the value of the strings, character pointers will help us, because it we can modify one particular character in one particular location. So, there is no string data type in C. An array of character type is considered as a string. Hence, a pointer of a character type array represents a string. This is an interesting concept in C, because even if we have a character type pointer, that can, using that pointer we can access the complete string, even though the string is a character type array, because the character pointer will be able to get the starting location of the array. So, once we get the starting location, which is a base address of the array, the next subsequent characters can be accessed through that pointer value. So, this is actually helps us to handle strings in a better way in C. So, the example which is given here, we can see that the ptr is a pointer type variable which has a value 100, which is nothing but the integer value, right. So, the value of this pointer type is a address is holding the address 100. 100 is going to be the address of starting address of the string type or the character array. So, once if we get the first address, then subsequently we will be able to handle the complete string. Initializing character pointer, how we are going to initialize it? After declaring a character pointer, we need to store values onto the character pointer, which is actually going to be the address of a character type variable. So, if the character array, we can simply initialize a character pointer by providing the name of the character array or the address of the first element. The declaration statement would be char type, data type will be char because it is a character pointer, and asterisk pointer name, which is going to be the user defined name, which is of pointer type, equal to ampersand the character type variable. So, the ampersand symbol will let us get the address of that particular character type variable. Then character pointer of character array. So, how the array is going to be dealt with, which is also the same way that the pointer can be defined and the character array name can be stored directly, or we can even store the address of the first index, which is going to be the 0th element, that could be directly stored using the character type pointer name. So, we will see with an example. We have two variable character and character array. We are taking two pointer variables also, and we will find out how actually these two works, right. So, the character type variable, it is x, which is having the value p. Character array is named as ARR, which has a string tutorials point, right. So, declaring character pointers. Now, we are declaring pointer 1 as with the name ptr x, which is going to store the address of x. ptr arr, it stores the address of arr, right. Now, using the format string %c and %s. So, here we can find a difference. If it is going to be a single character, we are supposed to use the format string %c. If it is going to be an array, we should use the format string %s, right. So, using %c, I am just declaring, I am just printing the value of asterisk ptr underscore x, which is actually pointing to x. X actually be pointing to the value stored in x, which is p, right. So, now what is stored in ptr arr? ptr arr stores the first element's address, first element which is having the value 2, value t, right. So, this ptr arr will be pointing to the arr, which is an array, which will be pointing to the value tutorials point. Henceforth, we can see here that using single %c, single character, you can get the single character displayed. Using the format string %s, we can get the complete character array displayed, but see to that both are pointer variables pointing to the character and pointing to a string. So, there is a difference in accessing the values, right. Now, a string is declared as an array as this way, right. We have already learnt that. A string is null terminated array of characters. The last element in the array will be a null character represented as \0, right. Now, declare a pointer of char type and assign its address to the 0th position. So, this is one of the way that we can assign the string to the character pointer. This is again one more way of accessing the 0th element, right. So, string may be declared using a pointer instead of an array variable, using the way that you can even store a complete string using enclosed within double quotes. So, this actually causes a string to be stored in memory as an array, and its address will be pointed by ptr. We can traverse a string by incrementing the pointer value. So, what I am doing, I am using a while loop asterisk pointer not equal to null. So, this is the termination condition. Up to the array having the null character, we will be able to traverse each character in the particular array. Okay. Only thing is, we have to increment the pointer variable to the next location to get it done in the form of a string, right. So, accessing character pointer. Okay. So, how we are going to access the character pointer? The same way we will declare an array and we will declare a pointer pointing to the array. We can simply use a while loop until it encounters the null character or the termination character. We can simply use a %c, and we can, if we display its value, which is going to get each and every value on every loop iteration, and we can get the pointer incremented on every iteration. So, we will be able to get the complete string displayed. Instead of %s format specifier, we can even use %c as a character pointer, and we can run the loop and to get it done. So, this is the way that the character array can be accessed. Now, we will look into the character pointer functions. Generally, in string.h header file will be having the library functions with respect to string processing. the very basic and common string handling functions are str, len, which is to find the length of a string. Now, we can write our own user defined function instead of using the library function, or what the library function does, we will be able to imitate that using our own function using pointers. So, what actually being done, I am including the header file string.h. In the first example, we will see how using pointers we can use a string handling functions. I am declaring a pointer type variable pointing to the string hello, and using %s I am displaying the value of ptr. Then I can just use the strlen function by giving the pointer as the input. Instead of giving the string as input, we are now making the hello's first address to be pointed by ptr. So, what happens? I can just give the pointer as an input to use the, or to make use of the library function strlen to find its length. Okay. The same function we can write as our own user defined function. I am renaming it as str_len. I am passing the character array. So, what happens? I am declaring the pointer type variable pointing to the string. So, simply what we are doing, we know how to traverse the complete string using pointer. So, we will initialize a string and we will make the pointer to point to the first element, and from that pointer element we can increment the pointer's location, and we will be able to get the next location displayed, right. The same while loop I can make use of for accessing the n number of elements in the array, and for every iteration, for every pointer increment, we can have a variable to be incremented which can fetch us the string length. Okay. So, what happens here, I am giving the pointer as the input, and for finding out the length I am using my own function str_len instead of strlen standard library function, right. The same way you can also make it work so that it gives the length of the string displayed. We will also make use of the same concept for strcpy, strcmp functions. strcpy function will make a copy of the source string to the destination string. So, the source string can be copied to the destination string. I am using the string.h header file. We are creating a pointer and creating a string, pointing it to a string. I am creating another pointer. So, simply what we can do, instead of copying one string to the other, we can just copy the pointer variable to the other. So, what I am simply doing, if ptr1 points to the location 8000, right, I am making the same address to be even copied to ptr1. So, what happens, whatever be the content that is there in 8000 will also be copied to ptr1. So, both ptr and ptr1 will be pointing to the same location. So, whatever which is there in the ptr1, how are you doing is the string which will be copied to even ptr1. So, the same string copy function, instead of using str.h header file, we can create our own string copy str_cpy. So, what I do, I declare two pointers ptr1 and ptr2. I am making use of my own function. So, in my own function what I do, I just use a for loop for collecting the string characters from one string, and I am making that to be the source string, and I am copying each and every location to the destination string. Simply with pointers we can make use of the concept of iterating the pointers, and we will be able to implement the same concept, right. Similarly, strcmp, already we might have learnt this string compare function, which will give us 3 inputs, which will be 0 when both the strings are identical, which will be not matching if the first string is greater than the second string, if its ASCII value is going to be greater than string 2. Similarly, if the first string is lesser than the ASCII value of the second string, it is going to give us a negative integer. So, we will be having 3 outputs, 0, positive value, and the negative integer. the same method we can make use of our own pointers concept and we can implement it as our own method function, right. So, first we will learn how to use a built in function string.h. I am declaring two strings character string pointers S1 and S2. We are comparing here using strcmp function which returns an integer. So, we are comparing three comparisons whether it is equal to 0 or greater than 0 or less than 0, right. The same concept we can create our own user defined function and we can handle it. Okay. So, how we are going to do? So, same way I am creating two strings with character pointers S1 and S2. What I do in the user defined function is, while the first string is going to be null or the second string is going to be null. It means that I am going to iterate the string, whether the first string is null or the second string is terminated, we have to close the loop. We are comparing the one to one string or character array values. The first element is compared with the first element of string 2, the first element second element of str1 is compared with the second element of str2. So, likewise we do it, and if it is greater or smaller, according to that we will return the integer value, either it is equal or negative or positive integer. According to our example, we have given both the strings to be of equal. So, we are getting the output to be both strings are identical, right. So, what we have learnt in this session is about creating a string pointer, about initializing the character pointer. So, we have learnt various ways of using the library functions. So, I will go to the previous slide and I will explain how the string functions are being implemented using character pointers. So, here we will take one example of string to be the C programming tutorials online. So, asterisk S1 is having the value the C programming tutorials online. So, we can see that the pointer S1 will be pointing to that string. So, let us assume that it starts with the location 8000. The first character is going to be T, the second character is going to be H, the third character is going to be D, right. I am taking one more pointer variable S2 which also points to the same content, okay, but the locations are different. Okay. The location, let us say that it starts with 8005 for example, or maybe 9000, right. So, what I do in my user defined function, we are checking whether str1 is null or str2 is null. Since both are not null, we will be checking for the contents of comparing the two string values. So, what happened? We are taking the first string pointer, first string pointer's value, it is 8000. What is the content that is stored in pointer 1? It is T. So, that is denoted using the symbol asterisk. Asterisk denotes a value that is stored in that location 8000, right. Okay. So, the value stored in the location 8000, it is T. Then what we do? We take asterisk str2. Asterisk str2 is again going to be the location 9000. What is the value stored in 9000? It is going to be T. So, it is also T. So, we are comparing these two characters. If it is not equal, we are going to subtract str2 value from str1, right, or otherwise we can simply increment the value of str1, we can simply increment the value of str2. So, what I do? I am incrementing the value of str1 which becomes 8001. If I increment, this becomes 9001. Then we are comparing the contents of these two characters, which is actually going to be H. So, H is also equal, right. So, this statement will not be executed, it will be now equal. Then again the loop will be continued. So, since the contents of both the str1 and str2, all the characters are the same, we will get this loop executed until str1 or str2's character become null character, in the sense that if str1 finished executing all the character comparison and it encounters null. Similarly, if str2 also encounters null, if either one of these strings becomes null, then this condition will be, when the execution of the loop is terminated, it comes out of the loop and we get the thing done, it is returned here. So, it means that both the string are equal. So, if this condition will be executed and we get the display as both strings are identical. Okay. So, this is how we can make use of the pointers to handle the inbuilt functions of string handling functions, because it deals with the character pointers. Okay. So, this way it helps us easily iterating or traversing the complete string and we can get the process done, right. So, summarizing on this particular session, we have learnt how to create a character pointer, how to initialize a character pointer, then how to make a string to be accessed through the character pointer. Anyway, we would have declared the character pointer. Using a character pointer, how we can handle the strings. This is actually a beautiful and interesting concept of C language, to declare a character pointer and to access the complete string with the help of the character pointer. And we have seen the relevant examples on using the character pointer to access the string. Then how to access the character pointer we have seen, and we have learned the built-in functions of string handling functions with respect to string.h header file. The very popular string handling functions are strlen, strcpy and strcompare. So, CMP. So, all these three functions we have learned without even using these built-in functions, how we can manage the concept of finding the length of the string, copying the string and comparing the string with the help of character pointers. Okay. So, this is how character pointers help us in implementing the programs with respect to strings and string handling functions. So, thank you so much for listening